Good afternoon, friends. Wanted to break down what we are going to see over these next couple of hours as we begin not round one, but round two of winter weather that we are experiencing just this week. So what we're tracking these next couple of days. Of course, today the snowfall will arrive, but you'll notice this is a pretty quick mover. By Saturday morning, snowstorm will taper off, and even early next week, we're warming things up slowly but surely. The key word is slowly. We'll get there, at least a little bit more seasonable. So today we are cold, cool, and it certainly looks like snow if you stepped outside today. Temperatures are in the 20s and 30s right now. 27 in Roanoke currently, Hot Springs 25, Danville 30, South Boston 32, Wytheville 25, and Bedford also at that 32-degree mark. So we are cold. And we are windy. Over the next couple of hours, we'll barely hit that 33-degree mark by about 2 to 4 o'clock. After that, temperatures fall into the 20s. I wanted to point this out. Average high temperature this time of year is 47 degrees. We are nowhere near that, so it is still very chilly. But not only are the air temperatures chilly, but the feels like temperatures are cooler because of the wind speed. We do have at least a slight breeze today, so it's not necessarily very blustery, but still just a little bit of a breeze. Our winds gusting near that 10-mile-an-hour mark. So again, nothing too horrid in terms of very, very windy conditions, but just enough to make the temperatures feel a little bit chillier than the actual numbers we're seeing on the air temperature map. So back to the main event. Snowfall headed our way within the next couple of hours. Let's break down these impacts. So we will, all of the area, see snowfall. Icy conditions will be at least a little bit more isolated than what we were seeing Sunday and into Monday. So that is the good news. It's not going to be as icy. Now this icy event that we saw, of course, a lot of power outages, a lot of trees down. We still have the threat because not only do we have the ice that in majority of spots hasn't had a chance to melt. So that's been a concern. I've certainly been out and about in Roanoke, and I've noticed even some parking lots are still have some slick spots that aren't well plowed, well taken care of. So worth noting, we have the snowfall that will be falling on top of some spots that are already very icy. So that does add an added danger. And of course, power outages are still a slight concern with this event as well. And on top of it, a blast of cold air still in our area, so we do have that wind chill that is very, very real and definitely feels a little bit cooler than the actual air temperatures that we are seeing. So look at our radar right now. We are seeing, at least showing up on radar, some snowflakes that are falling into portions of Wythe County, starting to see that also headed into Bland County just a little bit. Now again, this is showing up on radar, so this is not necessarily reaching the ground at this point. And I'm actually going to pull this out to a national view. We're going to hop over here, switch things up a little bit. So let's go over here to a national view. Now this is a little bit more of a broad brush than what we were seeing with just that one radar site that's based actually out of Floyd County. But what we're seeing right now with this national composite view right here, there is a lot of heavy precip right now in parts of Tennessee, North Carolina, and even Kentucky, and South Carolina as well, northern Georgia. Now, because of this heavy precip that we're seeing right here, locally, we're actually being robbed of some moisture. So because of that, we're not necessarily seeing the amount of moisture we expected, at least at this time. So in the upper atmosphere, we actually have to work to saturate the entire atmospheric column. So right now, and I'll hop back over here to our local radar site. You'll notice that beam, the radar beam right there out of Floyd County. That's the local one. So right now, this is we're still seeing snow, but it is very high up in the atmosphere. So that's the issue. We have to get the air column saturated. And by saturation, what we're watching as we look into the upper portions of the atmosphere, we are looking for the temperature to equal the dew point. So that's the measures. As meteorologists, we look at a graph called an atmospheric sounding is what we look at. And there are two different lines that plot on this graph the air temperature and the dew point, and they plot it as we head further up into the upper atmosphere. And when they're far apart, that's when it's still dry in some parts. But when they equal each other and they are right on top of each other, that is the saturation that we are looking for when those two things are equal. So right now we are not seeing that. We're beginning to get a little bit closer towards saturating it all the way to the surface. So we need those two lines on top of each other. And at that point, that's when we will begin to see snowfall on the ground. So like this, and even summertime when we see the same thing with the rain showing up on radar but not on the ground. Excuse me, I couldn't think of that word for some reason. That's what we call virga. So it's still the kind of same thing, just we're seeing that with snowfall right now when the saturation is not at ground level. So right now we are still working on that, and over the next couple of hours, that is when we will finally begin to see actual snowfall on the ground. And we're looking at that time frame about 2 to 4 p.m. in the New River Valley, and that will stagger and of course be a couple hours later as we head further on into that Roanoke zone, Lynchburg zone, and even south side. And what you're looking at a little bit earlier as we were checking out that national view, it also did plot all of the warnings. So we have quite a few. All of the pink right here, we've become very familiar with this color these past couple of days. These are all winter storm warnings. And clicking on this, you will see this expires by 7 o'clock on Saturday morning. Same story for the winter weather advisories. Now, of course, that warning in place for those spots. They're expecting those higher snowfall totals, especially into those higher elevations in some counties. But across the board, the good news is at least even though some spots are getting a little more snow than others, the ice is not as much a part of the conversation as it was just a couple of days ago. So we do have just a few alerts in place until tomorrow morning, and that will continue overnight. So let's time this out as we head into the overnight hours as well. So we're starting this afternoon with that rainfall and that wintry mix. So we're starting about 2 o'clock in some areas, and this will continue and gradually move over to snowfall. And you'll notice for once, snowfall event is lasting much longer than the wintry mix, which is exactly what we want to see for a lower impact event. We will continue to see the snowfall overnight, and as we look at Futurecast here in the next couple of moments, we'll see that it's also really illustrating more so of a snowfall event. That will continue overnight into Saturday morning. Now, this is a very quick mover. So this starts this afternoon, of course, and ends by about 7 to 8 a.m. on Saturday morning, and we are dry, and we may even see a few peaks of sunshine Saturday afternoon, and you might even get to see a little bit of a sunset Saturday evening because of it. So this will clear things out. That will eventually be the pattern as we head into the latter part of our day on Saturday. So totals, this is what everybody's wondering. Most of us will see about 1 to 4 inches of snowfall. Now, depending on the precip type, and of course we're already seeing the lack of saturation rather in those spots into the far southwestern portions of Virginia. Now, depending on the mixture that we're watching for that the type of precip, that could change things up just a little bit in terms of those amounts. We could see the ice actually, or the frozen precip or mixed precip starting to, I don't know how else to say it other than kind of crunch it down. It's not going to be that light, fluffy snow in some spots, depending on how long we get that wintry mix. We could see that ice just really lessening those snowfall totals just a touch. But overall, the range that we're looking at is still that 1 to 4 inch mark. And of course, you'll notice those spots in blue right there, those very isolated higher elevations. We'll see that about 3 to 5 inches is what we're expecting for those totals. Now let's time this out on a Futurecast. By 2 p.m. within the next hour, you will notice very isolated spots for snowfall and even some mixed precipitation. As we continue to see this heading into our area, by about 4 o'clock, you'll notice the reflectivity values, these colors right here, they change a little bit. So this is signifying more of that saturated air mass, those darker blues, starting to see that's actually reaching the ground by about 3 to 4 o'clock, and that will continue through the evening drive time. Cannot stress this enough. Even though it is just snowfall and it's not necessarily as icy, there are going to be some isolated portions of mixed precip. You're already seeing right there into Wythe and Bland counties right there that mixed precip by 5 to 7 o'clock's that window where we would see that. So this, again, if you're trying to head home for work at this time, it could be a little bit slick. So cannot stress enough. I know some schools are releasing early. If you're able to head out and get off of the road sooner before this event begins, that would be fantastic. Not the time you want to be out on the roadways, even the next couple of hours. Now, I do think that this will be at least a little bit less of an impact because it is all majority snowfall. But still, even if it is just this snowfall event, we say just snowfall because we most recently dealt with that icy event, it's still not great to be out and about with. Now, you'll notice by 9 p.m. we're starting to pick things up in the entirety of our viewing area. This just looks like a straight up temperature map because it is just all blue, all blues right here. All of us will deal with that snowfall, and that will continue into the overnight hours on Friday. And by Saturday, we're starting to see a little bit of mixing right there. Danville and Pittsylvania County, South Boston area. And that really is the end of the event. Mixing towards very, very end by 6 a.m. on Saturday. And this is even before sunrise. Most of us are dry. You'll see that those higher elevations, of course, those western slopes of the mountains of West Virginia, that typically deal with snowfall a lot more than the rest of our viewing area. Of course, they're still hanging on to some snowflakes. Isolated pockets as we move into the further southwestern portions of the state, but most of us dry. You'll notice by about 6 that we are still seeing isolated pockets of snowfall in the Giles and Bland and Wythe counties, but most of us will stay fairly dry. And that will continue. That pattern will last until 10, 11 a.m. We'll continue drying things out. And watch this spot right here, Greenbrier, Pocahontas County into West Virginia, both of those counties right there. By 10 a.m. and even into lasting until about 5 to 6, that's that window that we see even the snowfall moving out of those areas that are typically more snowfall prone just because of the upslope snowfall showers. And we are completely clear by Sunday. So we continue to see this Sunday afternoon and evening. We are entirely dry and mostly clear. To go along with it, we're still seeing mostly clear conditions. So this is a quick mover. I want to reiterate that ends by the majority of the precip will be out of our hair by Saturday afternoon. All of us clear by Saturday evening, and even into Sunday, we are still very dry. So fantastic news. Now, I did want to pop this graphic up here, and as a reminder for really myself more than anything as well, because this is still, it's just always a good reminder when you start to think about driving in winter conditions. Now, stopping distance is definitely affected by the type precip on the roadways. Of course, dry conditions, when your brakes are applied about 35 miles an hour, this is what this graphic is based off of. We stop pretty quickly. Now, when those roads are wet, obviously, the stopping distance is a little bit further in snowfall and ice. That's the tricky part when we're seeing that greatest distance applied. So take things slow and be sure, and the best thing you can do, stay off the roadways if at all possible. Now is not the time to be flitting out and about if you don't have to, especially as we're seeing the snowfall picking up in these next couple of hours. And when we see those icy conditions that are still on some roadways, because we have not had a lot of melting possible with these temperatures for the past couple of days. So now's the time to get prepared. These next few hours, about 3 to 4 o'clock is that window when we're beginning to see finally some saturation in our atmosphere and really begin that snowfall. Zone by zone forecast today. This is quite interesting. You remember just a few minutes ago we were talking about our average hot temperature, 47 degrees, 48, 47, about this time of year. High temperature today in the New River Valley is 30 degrees, 32 in Highlands and Roanoke, Lynchburg 33 and Southside 35. barely above freezing Lynchburg and Southside, Roanoke and Highlands, literally on the mark. NRV, just a couple degrees below. Across the board, any way you cut it, it is going to be cold. It is going to be very cold. And that's also the problem with the ice that hasn't had a chance to melt at all. Snowfall that we're seeing on top of it today. Something to keep in mind, of course, because the snowfall covering up those icy spots, not going to be as cognizant of them and could be very, very slick. Now, there is some hope on the horizon. You'll notice right there on Monday, that heat wave, 41 degrees. It's going to be warmer, at least. We won't be average for this time of year by any means, but we'll still be in the 40s. 37 on Sunday, 41 on Monday. So that is our prime time, not only for temperatures above freezing, but we'll see some sunshine. So that will help with melting things a little bit, starting to clear things out. Now, overnight does not even try to help with melting. We are falling into the teens for both Saturday and Sunday evening, our low temperatures. Now, Tuesday, woohoo, we're in the 20s, Tuesday and even this evening. But still, refreezing is going to be a possibility across the area for the next couple of days. The ice that we experienced Sunday and Monday is still hanging around in some spots. So we're just adding to it and experiencing the cold blast of air behind it. So again, now is that time to prepare over these next couple of hours. Try and get as much as you can done so you can get off the roadways if at all possible, because even still, 1 to 4 inches of snow, a little bit fluffier, a little bit better than the ice, but will still impact travel. And of course, some schools are already releasing early about this time. So now is the time to hunker down and get ready for a beautiful snowfall this weekend. It's not as icy and heavy, so we'll still have the potential for power outages, but hopefully things won't be nearly as widespread as what we have dealt with previously. So stay safe and stay warm this weekend, my friends. We will be popping on this live stream over the next couple of hours as well, just to keep you updated on those latest forecast totals and anything else we're looking at in terms of those radar scans. So we will talk in a bit, but for now, stay warm.